Welcome to another episode of the Swiss Connection. This time it's the Cease and Desist edition.
Yes.
I bet you have something to say about that. So, Goldeneye 25 has sadly been hit with that one letter you hoped would never arrive, the Cease and Desist letter. What can you say about it? What happened?
So it was quite a surprise because we've been in development for over 2 years, and to now receive the cease and desist letter was kind of funny because at the beginning stages when we started to upload and share material on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, there was a certain amount of news report coverage. A lot of sites picked it up, as well as the Bond Bulletin. You did one of the first exclusive previews. And so after a certain while, of course, it was always in the back of our heads that cease and desist could happen at any time, of course. But we sort of thought after, like dozens and dozens of articles written and the amount of exposure it had, that we're on pretty safe ground. But we were proved to be wrong in that regard. And of course, the initial, I remember it was 2:30 at night from Monday to Tuesday. Ben wrote me an email. I was already in bed and the phone vibrated. Ben wrote me a message, please get in touch as quickly as possible. And I thought, oh, wow, okay, so this can mean two things, either a cease and desist or some big company wants to buy our assets or whatever. And it was, of course, the first one. And yeah, so there was an initial shock, and then we talked about it and we said, okay, well, then let's go to plan B. Let's not waste any time or mourn over it, because the plan B was something we've discussed from the very beginning.
Okay. Yeah. So how did this moment actually feel like when you realized that this cease and desist letter put a stop to all of it, all of the work you had done for months and months? What did that do to you inside? Give me the honest truth.
Yes. So I made a comparison. It's like it really felt like, there was a big party taking place, of course, the party being everything to do with Bond. And we sort of were hanging around there and thought we were accepted to a certain extent. But then, some guy came and said, you know what, we would like you to leave the party. You were not invited. And it felt exactly like that. And I knew once I heard about the cease and desist, of course, it was a shock, and it was unsettling, But I knew that, of course, a lot of the assets can be converted into a new game and can be reused, and we just have to get rid of the names and everything that is connected to the Bond and Goldeneye brands. But for the music, of course, I was gutted because I knew I had to write the whole score, a complete new score, because, of course, my score relied heavily on the Bond themes and riffs and stuff like that, and so I knew there won't be any way around this, that I have to do a complete new score. And of course, after having worked on it for 2 years, that was quite a blow.
Yeah, I can imagine. To those viewers who don't know what a cease and desist letter is, let me quickly explain to you what happened. So a cease and desist letter is sent by a copyright holder through their legal representatives. In your case, these were the lawyers of MGM and Danjak, who hold the Bond copyrights, also the copyrights to the video games, which includes the original Goldeneye for N64. And I know we were speaking about that a lot in the build-up to Goldeneye 25, that the rights to the original game were sort of unsure. Nobody knew who actually owned the intellectual property, the IP, as it is called in video games. So it was quite a surprise that this letter, this cease and desist letter, which basically means stop what you're doing and don't pick it up again.
Yes.
That's what this letter meant. And it was very considerate of you to let me have a look at the letter, so that we're all on the same page. And it was rather friendly, I thought, from the tone. It was a usual law firm letter. It was quite frank, to the point. But I thought there was a bit of praise in there for your work, which obviously does not help the cease and desist. Stop what you're doing and don't finish it, don't pick it up again. But what I thought when researching what the IP is about of a video game and what it includes. It includes so much, from the source code to the characters, which in Nintendo 64 GoldenEye is, of course, Bond, Brosnan, Famke Janssen, all the main cast you cannot use. And then there's things like the choreographies, the buildings, the maps, so the original layouts, conceptual art, box design, of course, soundtrack and sound effects. That's your department. So what can you actually salvage? What can you reuse or remodel?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very nice you pointed it out, and especially that was another thing why we decided directly, we should comply and not make a fuss about it, because first of all, and we had this week was absolutely crazy. It was one of the craziest weeks of my life. First of all, because there was such a backlash from the community, dishing out to MGM and Dungeon, which I have to say, I really love the devotion and the passion that people pour into this, and obviously it's something they feel very strongly about. But I have to say clearly that it was what MGM and Dunjok have done through the representatives was their very right. It's not that we claim anything, or that's why we also said we don't want to get a lawyer and try to fight this. No, it's their right, it's their property, that is okay. And some people have started petitions, to sign a petition so we are able to continue working on this, which is not what we want. The thing is, we were surprised because the most worried we were about, people abandoning the project and us in general. For now, it is not any a GoldenEye project anymore, but it was quite the opposite. In fact, we had a couple of companies that got in touch with us who, suggested some sort of funding and interest in supporting the game. I was busy all week. Fortunately, I was on holiday. I was busy all week from day and night, answering messages and comments and stuff like that. We've chatted with some former Rare developers who greatly support us and said, you've built up such a community, and you've shown what kind of quality you can offer, which was also confirmed by the law firm, like you said. The tone they set was very amicable. Of course, it doesn't change about the cease and desist, but it was a very nice tone, so we said, let's leave it at that. Now, what can we reuse? Of course, like I said, the music has to go entirely. That will wind up on another album. I will license it like cover songs and sell it like I've always done with previous Bond albums and tracks. The sound effects, of course, we can use because they're not protected. Those are sound effects that I bought licenses for and that we can still use. Now, as for layouts and stuff like that, of course, we now had to write, or we're towards the end now, but we had to come up with our own story arc, our own characters, which kind of renders many levels useless. It wouldn't make sense in the story arc. So a couple of levels we will change heavily, but we'll still use in there. Like I think it's going to be like 16, 70 levels altogether. And we maybe will be able to use 4 or 5 in the way they sort of were. Of course, sometimes we make changes, like Depot we will use as of now, and everything is subject to change, of course. Depot we can use, for instance, but it will be turned into a harbor, so to speak. So it's a depot with a nearby harbor. And of course, a lot of the props and stuff that Ben has modeled, weapons, explosives, doors, buildings, stuff like that. Of course, we can still use those things because they're basically random objects that are not part of the code or the IP of GoldenEye. And so there's quite a bit we can still use.
Okay, that's really good. And you came up with a new name. First,
Yes.
It was Project Janus, and now it became Spies Don't Die.
Yeah. Well, to be very honest, because we speak very openly, the both of us, I told Ben one day, I personally, that's just my opinion, I'm not a big fan of Spies Don't Die because it sounds kind of random and it could be anything within those realms. And so I said maybe we could use it as an over or undertitle. So like you have a Tom Clancy series, for instance, it always says Tom Clancy and then Rainbow Six or whatever. And maybe we'll handle it like that. And so it gives us the freedom to maybe make it a series even. So we could have, it's always the overtitle is Spies Don't Die. And then, for instance, for this game, it'll have a subtitle like Project Janus. It won't be that, but it could be just the over title of the series.
Sure. What I liked really was that all of this, from the cease and desist letter to changing the corresponding social media accounts, Facebook and Twitter, to the new name, first Project Janus and then Spies Don't Die, went really quick, like in a split second. And you had a nice looking logo for Spies Don't Die. You had a main theme that you put out just 1 or 2 days ago or something,
Yes.
which borrows heavily from Goldeneye, of course, because I mean, this is your world musically, and you do it really, really well.
Thank you.
What bugged me after going through this C&D letter was what a missed opportunity they have.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have brought you on board, Ben being the brilliant modeler and level designer that he is. And just to remember, people out there, these are two guys doing a game that looks so brilliant. And I mean, the media coverage was probably part of the problem, but it was massive.
Yeah.
And it's still massive now. So the same media attention was given to the cease and desist letter than to the news that there is a game in development.
Yes, exactly.
And the thought did not leave my mind that instead of sending a cease and desist letter, I would have probably sent a business offer to make money. But what they now did, and we talked about that before on Skype, is something funny. They gave you the opportunity to make money with a new game, which you could not have done with a GoldenEye remaster.
Exactly. It's just that. And I thought, it's funny you mentioned the media coverage. I thought, okay, now GoldenEye's gone, all this huge thing, the James Bond thing is gone. Now nobody's going to care anymore, basically. They're all going to ditch us, maybe a last article on the cease and desist, and that's it. But like you said, again, like with the community, it was exactly the opposite. We had like 5 to 6 journalists who got in touch and told us, please send us information as soon as it's out. We are very interested in this project. And concerning the team, you were talking about 2 guys. Yeah, that's right. We had some consultant sessions where we talked with business professionals, and they basically told us to maybe think about extending the team or making the team bigger and getting some other people on board. That's something we're a bit hesitant with because we've gotten so far with GoldenEye. We could have, of course, completed it. But we want to keep the team as small as possible because the more people you have to control, and like I said, to make such a thing work, you always have to get the best people, which is really hard to do. And so we will probably keep it small. And also we want to keep the goals of the game very moderate. So it's going to be clearly branded as a retro game. It won't have all this modern game stuff like, perfect facial animation and even the bad things like when you're being talked through levels and you have to go this and do there, go this. It should have the freedom. And now, sorry, what was the question?
It was no question. It was we were talking about the media coverage.
Yes. Yeah. So it was still the media interest is still very high. So that speaks volumes for what we have achieved so far, which is really great experience. And we would have never thought that it would go like that. Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's based solely on the visuals that you provided up until now. Because the detail in the levels was so on point.
Yep.
And I think all the media outlets, Eurogamer and even Forbes magazine, they have their experts having the right age, just like us, who played these games when they were young. And they must have seen, wow, this is a golden nugget. And we need to write about it. That's what I thought when I saw it. And, well, I was fortunate enough to play a demo level. It blew my mind. I thought, oh, if you do that for whatever 3D glasses, or people will freak. They will buy it in the millions. Of course, they can't buy it because you would have given it away for free, which now completely changed.
Yes.
I mean, if you do it right with an extended team or whatever, you could take over the market with a game like that.
That's right. That's one of the possibilities. Yeah. So the prospect of being able to sell it, of course, is a major advantage because, like you said, it's it will now in the end be like for the 5 to 6 years that we have spent a considerable amount of time into it. And again, there's other things that we can do. We have complete, creative control. We can bring it to the consoles, which was always brought up by the community. Oh, why can't you bring it to consoles and stuff like that? And a big plus, of course, is even if we could have remade Goldeneye, you would have still played Goldeneye. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Now we know the characters, we know the movie, we know the story. So it would have been Goldeneye all over again, which would have been nice, no doubt about it. But now we can come up with a new story, and you can experience it from day one, and you have a completely new experience. Still heavily inspired by Goldeneye and with all the great atmosphere and everything it had, plus a bit more variety, because that's another tiny detail I can give away at this point. Of course, again, the story is subject to change, but it will, in this game, you will be around the globe much more. So there will be a couple of missions in the Soviet Union, then in Russia, and it will also be some levels. We have one is going to be in Siberia, one is going to be in Miami, one is going to be on a tropical island, one is going to even be up in space.
Oh wow! It fulfills the element that every technically Bond cocktail needs:
Yes.
location hopping, and putting that generally in the spy genre. Great. I like what I'm hearing. That's really good. I don't really care if it's Bond. It would be nice, but given the lack of games that we had the last couple of years, I mean, they did this GoldenEye thing, GoldenEye 007 on the Wii and on the PS3, I think, and it was ridiculous. It was unplayable. It was no fun. Maybe for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I must admit I have it. I have the PlayStation version, and I played through it. But after 30 minutes, I lost all interest and fun. The last good game for me was Bloodstone. That was a really, really good game, a well-balanced game with an original storyline. Also, all of that location hopping. You had Istanbul. You had, I think, Monaco. This was really well done and fast-paced. So
yes.
I think that is part of your challenge now, to deliver a game that captivates people in that way that a Bond film does, or a really good Bond game.
I think so too.
Just not being Bond.
Exactly. Well, that's another thing you brought up earlier. It was the thing about, MGM or Dunjak offering some sort of cooperation. Of course, we never anticipated that, because, of course, we could have asked prior to starting the development if this would be an option. But, I think I've seen enough examples, and I know enough game developers to know that would not have been a serious consideration for them to do something like that. I mean, especially at the beginning, when you don't have a portfolio, when you don't have anything out. I mean, anybody could come knocking at their door asking for collaboration, which, I mean, let's be honest, right? And now it's, but now in the end, I have to say, now this has settled, and now we're really starting to develop the story and the characters. I think in the end, MGM Dungeon really done us a favor, really, because, and I'm sure, because I think now it's getting a little bit better, but games for the last couple of years, they sort of went into a direction that like old school gamers like us don't really appreciate anymore. There was a lot of, I call this Call of Duty thing, where you're just being taken from one point to another in a level. Then there's those quick time events and stuff like that. So basically, most of the control is being taken away from the player. And I think going back into history to what made games great, also games like Nightfire and stuff like that, really makes games something truly special. And let's try what we're going for. You're just being thrown into a level, and now do like it with GoldenEye. You do your thing, experience it yourself, find out the things yourself with as little help as needed, and of course with some twists to it. Well, one thing that will probably wind up in the game is sort of like a little bit of when you get a little more control as a player. So when you have to negotiate with a character, or you have to hold the character at gunpoint, it depends on your, I would like to say, diplomatic skills. If you can get an information out of him, And yeah, that's our strong suit, I know.
Yeah, well. Hmm.
But so you can slightly influence not the overall story arc because that would make it too complicated, but you can influence that mission. So if you have an enemy, for instance, or an ally, and you try to get information out of him, and you do it good, and you do a good conversation with him, you'll get the intel, and he'll go off. And if you fail to sort of get the intel out of him, he will go off, and you have to find the information another way in order to complete the level. So that adds replay value and makes it a little more interesting.
Definitely sounds good. Or a card playing level, a casino level.
Mm-hmm.
They had that in, I think, The World Is Not Enough. They had this casino level, Zukowski's Casino, but
Yeah.
only on the PlayStation
Yes.
version.
Yeah,
It
I
was
just
not on the Nintendo 64.
Mm-hmm.
A game I still play, actually.
Me too. Absolutely. Yeah.
So they have replay value, yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with you absolutely that modern games are somewhat of a letdown. So for me, it's like I don't know, like an Easter hunt. I read so many reviews of games, and out of 100 titles, there is maybe one or two that really interest me, or is that, oh, I can have a look at that. But otherwise, for the past few years, and I'm an avid gamer.
Yeah.
So I would use much more of my time for gaming, but there simply is nothing around. The last thing I played, and I'm still playing, is that Forza game where you can drive around with the Bond cars.
Yeah.
Still playing it.
Well, I think, the games nowadays, it gets a little better now, I think, because there's titles like Last of Us 2. They're so fantastic games with substance, actually. But I think gaming, or the games over the last couple of years, they suffered the same fate like movies. They're all about effects and quality, graphics and sound and everything, but they completely lack substance. It's like with the movies, it's the same thing. Many movies nowadays, they lack substance. And they just try to make it good with big name actors and a lot of visually impressive stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's exactly what the gap that we can bridge. I mean, the old games like No One Lives Forever or the Bond games come to mind, who sort of had a nice substance and a nice gameplay. But of course, nowadays you can't play them because we grew accustomed to different technical levels.
Yeah.
And so now you can bridge the gap. You can bring back the substance of the games, and add some still make it feel and look a little more modern to what we're accustomed to. Because another thing is, and that is quite important to mention, that when you're making these games, I think we have a very solid recipe now for something that really clicks, and it is important and vital that you don't lose yourself in tiny details. Like we had a chat about, Ben and I, are we going to implement voice acting, for instance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of dialogue boxes, right? Because dialogue boxes, okay, they're nice and retro, but it's a little bit hard to pull off nowadays. And then we said, you know what? And we also spoke to Dr. David Doak. He was one of our sort of consultants. He got in touch with us and said, let's have a chat. I would like to have a chat about the new project, because he's a very adamant supporter of our project. And he said, if you consider stuff like voice acting, you have to get people on board. You have to manage, the lip syncing, facial expressions, and all that. And that's just a bottomless hole that you can put so much time and effort in, and it still doesn't look good. I mean, even AAA games these days, they don't get this perfect still. So we said we avoid it, and maybe in 2 to 3 years time, maybe technology will have advanced and it can actually be done.
Yeah. What I would definitely not advise is use text-to-speech or something, only for introductions. But hey, if there's a role for me, I'm happy to jump on the bandwagon and, I don't know, voice 1 or 2 characters. I'm consider myself a decent voice actor.
Absolutely.
But what came to my mind just now, when you spoke about the kind of games, and that it needs to be sort of challenging and not just getting the player from one point to the other. I mean, I like a game sometimes where I lose, where I cannot advance because I'm too stupid.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why I don't play games where you have to solve riddles and puzzles. I don't like them. When I read it in the review, I don't touch it because I'm just too plain stupid. Well, that put a good light on me right now.
It's a massive shock. Yeah.
I know. So I'm more the shooter kind of person. But what I really loved, and I remember a couple of years ago, it might be 10 or 15 now, Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
2 and 3, especially 3, Snake Eater, which was set in the 60s and had a definite spy vibe, including the theme song.
Yeah.
We played nights, and it was difficult. It was downright difficult at some points. Until you were at the final boss or something, we were sweating. It was a summer like this, and we had, I don't know, plenty 6-packs of beer and whatever. And at some point, we just had to stop because nobody of us could defeat the end boss, and you had to try the next day. I want a game like that.
Yes.
Because I want a challenge.
Exactly. That's just exactly
and
like
that's
that.
what it's missing from games nowadays.
I agree, yeah, and that also extends to other parts of gaming. I mean, when did you last have a game where you actually had to, when you were shot, you were wounded, and you had to get medipacks in order to heal yourself? Nowadays, it's all auto heal, and it makes the game so much easier. And I think those are kind of things that really have to go, because like it's exactly what you said. Of course, it was frustrating in the moment being defeated by the game, but it was what made it interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm very much looking forward to Spies Don't Die. I hope you will keep me very well informed. And with the next Swiss Connection we do, we will have much more and maybe some new images or whatever.
Yes.
What do you think is the release date? Do you have any idea on when you would like to be finished with it? Do you have a timeline?
So I think it would be about 2 to 3 years now, because like I said, there's many assets and well, some of the level outlines that we can use, but of course, out of 17 levels, like I said, maybe 4 to 5 we can reuse or repurpose, and the other ones have to be built from scratch by then. So it's going to take a little more time. We will eventually get a couple of more people on board, but I think it's going to be 2 to 3 years at least. Of course, I don't worry about the motivation because Ben is so on point and he's so incredibly devoted to what he does. It's not going to be the problem. But realistically speaking, we have to expect at least 2 to 3 years. And if in 2 to 3 years' time we will see that we're not close. I mean, we don't have a deadline. That's also why we're very hesitant about getting companies on board or getting some sort of. Many people asked us about crowdfunding and funding stuff, and we said, let's take it slow because these things always bring with them some certain obligations, and we really want to stay free. We don't want to have release dates and deadlines and stuff like that as good as we can. We want to set them ourselves, but
yes.
Of course, when we see this takes more time, it's going to be more time, but not 10 years or something like that.
No. But it's like when I do a video on something that is really extensive, it's finished when it's finished.
Absolutely.
That's what I always say. And there is actually a game I'm waiting for since many, many years, and I will play that. And I played the game they released now, which is just a walkthrough virtual reality or non-virtual reality game. It's that Titanic thing I told you about. It's called Honor and Glory. And these guys have been working on that game, I think since 2010 or even before. So this is 10 years plus.
Yes.
But the visuals of the actual Titanic in-game, they blow your mind, really. And when you have a modern virtual reality headset, this will literally put you on the Titanic. And that is something I'm prepared to pay money for and wait for it. And I think the same waiting time for me is okay for Spies Don't Die and paying money for it.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yes.
And I'm pretty sure the whole Bond community will not be put off by this cease and desist. I think the other thing will hit you. They will all stand behind you, wait for the game, and be ready to play it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I hope that's what you all will be doing, guys, in a couple of years when this Corona thing blows over. I mean, if not, we have a game to play at home. Then we can self-isolate, and that's
At least, yes. That's the plan all along. Yeah.
That's a good thing. Don't tell China, though. Oh, that was political. Okay, Yannick, thank you so much for this Cease and Desist special edition. For the next Swiss Connection, we choose a lighter topic, I think, and we go back to speaking about our most favorite thing, which is Bond, the films, the music.
Yeah.
So.
Still is.
Until next time, guys. Thanks you for watching. I leave it as it is because it's very late. It's like 9 o'clock.
Well, who cares?
Well, I got up early. Really, some 5 o'clock or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why was that?
It's the Germans. They get up early in the morning so they can do a lot of work.
Okay. Well, whatever floats your boat, you know.
Yeah, not much.
Speaking of the Titanic.
Exactly. Yannick, thank you so much.
Thank you, Benjamin.
See you next time. All the best to Switzerland.
Best to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.